feels corny to start this by saying it was a dark and stormy night, so let's just say the weather was shit. I was on my way to a convention in Chicago with two of my good friends. We went every year and this was fourth time. The Weather Channel called for severe weather, but we refused to miss our annual overnight trip. We all piled in my car for a 6-hour drive. The first few hours was fine, just raining and humid. Then the typical Midwest severe thunderstorm started. The kind where you just look down at the lines on the road so you don't end up in the ditch since you can't see anything else. Once, when the lightning flashed, my friend Chris swore he saw a tornado in the cornfield in the distance. We finally gave up and pulled under a bridge until the rain let up enough for us to see. We waited a good 45 minutes and were running hours late from driving so slow through the storm. The rest of the trip was drizzle and that post-thunderstorm fog that has always felt creepy to me. There were hardly any other cars on the interstate since most people were too smart to be out driving, which just added to the creepy feeling. We didn't get to our motel until about 2 a.m. Since we were poor college kids, we never stayed at the convention hotel. Luckily, we had found a little motel a 20-minute drive away that was dirt cheap. We stayed at this motel every time we came to the convention. It was 3 stories tall and with no interior hallways. All the rooms were accessed from outside. Unfortunately, the cheapest rooms were on the 3rd floor and the elevator had not worked any of the times we visited. Checking into the motel in the middle of the night was interesting. It was still foggy and drizzling out, but also humid and hot. There were only 2 to 3 other cars in the dark parking lot, and the only lights were from the lobby and the street lights. We walked inside and no one was at the desk. After ringing the bell for about 15 minutes with no response, we actually called the motel from my friend's cell phone. An older man answered and soon came out to the desk from a back room. We tried to negotiate a first-floor room since obviously they were not busy. He was a jerk, though, and kept saying they're booked. There were 2 to 3 other cars there. Certainly some room on first floor had to be available. Being exhausted, we took our 3rd floor room and prepared ourselves to drag our suitcases up 3 flights of outside stairs in the drizzle and heat. As we left the lobby, the old man called out to us, "You kids lock your door and don't answer it after dark." He went back into the back room and slammed the door. God, that creeped me out. We unloaded the car in the foggy, dark parking lot and dragged our luggage to the stairs. As we came around the back of the building, we all saw the elevator. The out-of-order sign was gone and the doors were open. The light in the elevator was the only light source on the entire back of the building. It seemed like something good finally happened to us on the trip. The elevator was working and we didn't have to lug all of our things up those slippery stairs. I remember thinking it was weird that the doors were open. Didn't elevator doors usually stay closed until you pushed the button? But whatever, it was better than stairs. We loaded in our luggage and got in. I pushed the button for the 3rd floor and the doors started to close. The doors were standard elevator doors, and right before they closed, all the way words appeared. Written in red paint or marker on the far side of the elevator door so that it was only visible when the door closed, it said, "Well, you fucked now. Sorry fuckers." The elevator started moving. We all stared at the door. My friend, Chris from behind, said the obvious thing we were all thinking. "Guys, I think we're fucked." Took that damn elevator forever to get to the 3rd floor. With a ding, the doors slowly opened. None of us moved. I think we were all waiting for something to come out of the fog or one of those sirens from Silent Hill to start. Nothing happened. The door started to close and my friend, Amy, quickly shoved her suitcase in the way of the door. We all scrambled out. The elevator door closed and we heard it go down to the ground level again, abandoning us to our fate. Slowly, we all three came around to the side of the building. Nothing was there but a long walkway open to the elements with doors along the left side. Completely terrified now, we crept towards our room, which was halfway down the walkway. We were almost there when we heard it, loud and clear in the night. Ding, it was that goddamn elevator returning to the 3rd floor. We sprinted to the room. Chris had the key and frantically tried to get our door open as the other two of us stared towards the back of the building to see who would come around the corner. Click. The door was open and we bolted into the room. We locked every lock on that door and braced our suitcases up against it for good measure. We stood inside listening for anything else. We heard nothing. Being the only guy in the group, Chris looked outside after a few minutes, but he couldn't see anything. I don't think any of us slept well that night, and we never stayed in that motel ever again. This is an experience I had a couple years ago. It started with my best friend and I mentioning we need to go camping again soon. We spend a lot of time outdoors and try our best to camp at least a couple times a month. It was late November in Virginia, which can either be unseasonably warm or very cold. It was very cold this season. Our girlfriends had been recently picking at us about never taking them camping, because frankly we do a lot of primitive camping in cold, wet conditions, and we were surprised they'd even want to join us. As far as we're concerned, the harsher the conditions, the better the trip. Just your average manly ego bullshit. Honestly, I was stoked they wanted to come, so we made plans to go camping that weekend. Well, Saturday rolls around and we are all packed up and ready to get back to the great outdoors. We head onto the highway about 2.5 hours west into the mountains. As we approach our secret camping spot, it is getting colder and begins raining. I could tell my girlfriend was getting nervous about the dwindling light and setting up camp in wet conditions. My best friend and I do this frequently, so we reassure her it'll be fine. We arrive to the secret spot, which is essentially a scenic overlook that you can park beside to look at the beautiful mountains. However, by this point night has fallen, so all you can see at this point is the flickering city skyline miles into the distance. Anyone that spends time in the mountains knows that it gets dark very quickly once the sun drops behind the peaks. It is still raining and cold now. If I had a guess, I'd suspect it was about 34 degrees. The wind was violently whipping as we unpacked the car, and I could quickly see our girlfriends' demeanors deteriorating from once excited to, why did we want to come to this? To try to explain this camping spot, there is a small trail that leads off the scenic overlook that then drops vertically down a huge rock scramble, which if I had a guess is about 75 feet to the bottom of the cliff which the scenic overlook sits on top of. This is not an official marked trail, and you can sort of visualize it as somewhere that teens to park and walk down to go smoke weed. You are not allowed to camp there legally, but we were young and arrogant. We had a secret spot. It is relatively difficult to navigate your way to the bottom, and we always travel down very slowly to avoid broken ankles, falls, etc. I had all of my gear out of the car and ready to start making our way down this trail. My girlfriend and I made our way about 50 yards away from the car to the beginning of the trail. We sat down our backpacks and waited for my friend and his girlfriend. 2 to 3 minutes pass, and we are wondering what is taking them so long to get their gear out of the car. Remember, it's raining and cold, so we were feeling slightly impatient. After about 5 to 10 minutes pass, I was like, all right, what the hell? Let me see what's going on. I left my girlfriend standing there and walked back over to the car. I can hear my friend and his girlfriend arguing. What's wrong? What are they doing? I asked. He locked the fucking keys in the car. Well, it is now almost 10 o'clock at night, freezing, raining, and we have no cell service. The nearest town is 20 miles away. Immediately I'm annoyed because if there is one thing to not do right now, it's what he just did. I walk back over to my girlfriend to let her know what's up. She suffers from a joint disorder which makes her very sore when it's cold or humid, and I can tell she's starting to wince in pain. I yell to my friend that we're going down to get the fire set up because she's obviously uncomfortable. My main concern is getting her warm, and I'll be back up in a while to help him figure out this car situation. We turn on our headlamps and start slowly inching down the steep rocky decline. Remember, it is raining, but the worst part was the mist. It virtually renders your headlamp unusable. It illuminates all the fog around you, which makes it difficult to see. I am helping hold her gear. She'd go down, grab my gear, I'd go down, and we slowly repeated this process for about 20 minutes trying to make our way to the bottom. Even though this is a pain in the ass system, we're slowly making our way down. Again, she hands me her gear, then she comes down, takes my gear, I go further down. We're probably another 10 minutes from the bottom where we typically set up camp. "What is that?" she says. I could hear fear in her voice. I look down the rocky decline, squinting through the fog. I see a tarp. I said, "Oh hell yeah, free tarp." I figured someone at the top of the cliff had their tarp blown off and they never tried to retrieve it, so I was excited. I start inching my way over to grab the tarp, and as I'm about 5 feet from it, I see something that catches my eye. It's a handheld shopping basket from a grocery store, you know the ones. I can't make out what's in it, but it looks to be snack wrappers. I turned around and my girlfriend looked like she was gonna cry. "Is that a fucking person under that tarp?" I reassured her there is no way in hell. We are in the middle of nowhere. We're the only car parked up there, and it is freezing raining, and this person has no fire, no gear, tent, or anything. We are not near any major roads or trails, so there is no way it's a through hiker or homeless person out here. There are no stores, restaurants, nothing. On top of that, who could sleep on a 35-degree incline on slate stones? I inch closer to grab the tarp to prove to her she's being dramatic. My light is shining on the tarp. It moves. We both freeze like statues, and I silently stare because again my mind would not allow me to believe there could be a person sleeping on the side of this fucking hidden cliff with no gear in these conditions. It has to be the wind. My eyes must be playing tricks on me. I look back at my girlfriend. She's slowly backing up the incline. I look back down at the tarp. It starts moving. That's not wind. Someone is waking up under that fucking tarp. My heart is now pounding. I turn to my girlfriend and shakily whisper, "Run!" Before I could even say that, she is hauling ass scrambling up these loose falling rocks. I heard a half-awoken gravel-voiced moan and started busting ass up behind my girlfriend. I stopped as she went ahead and turned my light off and listened. I could hear that person down there shifting stones around. They were up and walking around. We woke them up. Are they going to follow us now? I tried to stay reasonable despite my fear and wondered if someone was lost or hurt down there. I called out, "Are you okay? We can help if you need help." Dead silence. "Hello." They were choosing not to respond. At that point, I said, "Fuck this," and continued up. We frantically made it up to the car, and my girlfriend is in tears, freaked the fuck out for good reason. I'm pacing my mind, trying to figure out what the fuck that person is doing. No gear, no shelter, no car, no fire. Once we inform our friends what happened, they're now freaking out, because we can't even get into our vehicle to leave thanks to Captain Dipshit locking his keys in it. The rain has since picked up, and we are sitting under a tarp huddling for warmth while my friend walks around trying to get cell service. I am sitting there dead, staring the trailhead in case that person comes up. Finally, my friend gets through to a locksmith. You don't even want to know what he paid for after hours recovery. but someone finally showed up. We told the locksmith what happened, and he told us to get the hell out of there and find somewhere else to camp. He'd lived in the area for a long time and then went on to tell us about the various mysterious murders that have happened over the years. Hikers missing, hikers found murdered. He said something along the lines of, "Some people hide away out here for a reason." We didn't even camp that night. Everyone was so freaked out we just drove back home. The whole car ride back was silent. I still lay awake some nights wondering what that person was doing. Were they on the run from police? Were they just a highly hardened yet unprepared camper? How did they get there with no car? Why didn't they have a fire going if they were just camping? They were just laying on the side of a cliff in the pitch-black freezing rain. I wish I could truly convey the type of area we were in. This is not a place a homeless person could survive. Any person that frequents the outdoors knows that humans are a bigger threat out there than most animals. I'd always heard that, but this was the first time I believed it. It made me reflect on how many things I did wrong. I never should have taken my girlfriend there that night. Illegally camping in an unmarked area, the dark, the rain, the lack of self-service. I was confident in my own camping ability to the point I never considered an external threat like that. Had something happened, no one would have found us. I was selfish, arrogant, and naive. So much could have gone terribly wrong had that person wanted to hurt us. I don't set up camp at night anymore, and our girlfriends no longer nag us for not inviting them. We have never gone back to that spot. To the possible axe murderer sleeping under a tarp on a 35-degree incline under a rocky cliff in the dark, freezing rain, let's not cross paths again. This happened in the year 2000. I was 21, living with my best friend in a 2-bedroom apartment in a pretty run-down area. Fortunately, there was no crime as it was all 2 broke kids just getting started could afford. I spent my days juggling classes at the local community college and working retail. I was single at the time and would often spend my time online all night on chat rooms and Usenet. I had met this girl in a local area chat room and we had been hitting it off, or so it seemed. I'd email her and we'd chat on ICQ. She had sent me a few pictures and I was really into her. Pretty with a thick curvy body, pretty much my type. Her name was Beth, and she had told me Beth by Kiss was her favorite song. This one rainy night in February we were talking and she had asked me to come over. She lived a few towns over, maybe an hour away. Like I said earlier, we were hitting it off and honestly I found myself liking Beth a lot. So I jumped at the chance to actually meet her in person. We made plans for me to pick her up and go to Waffle House. I showered and got dressed. Nothing too fancy, one of those long sleeve shirts with the stripe across the chest. Jeans, hoodie. I didn't want to overdo it, but still look decent. By the time I left, it was almost 11 and my roommate was asleep in his room. I headed out excited and nervous. In hindsight, I should have stayed home. Took a lot longer to get there than I thought it would, probably thanks to the rain. But sure enough, her directions took me right to her place. A double-wide trailer in a rural area trailer park. I walked up the stairs of the front porch and knocked on the door. I've always been pretty shy when talking to girls I liked, and I was still nervous when she opened the door. The door opened just a little, and a little voice told me to come in. I walked in apologizing for taking so long in a little bit of a nervous daze. She said it was okay and to have a seat. I sat on the couch, and then for the first time as I looked up and at her, that was not Beth. This much older woman, maybe in her mid-40s, wearing only a bathrobe, sat down across from me. I don't want to body shame, but I need to point out she was huge. I'm a big guy, over 6 foot with a big Haas-type body, and she was much bigger than me. I glanced around trying to figure out what was going on. I saw pictures of the Beth I knew on the wall. The same pictures I've seen. Hey, who's that guy in the pictures with this older woman? I looked back at her and instantly noticed that she was staring at the clock nervously. I asked what was going on and she started mumbling nervously. Actually, imagine a child telling you what they'd done when in trouble. That's how she was talking, like a child caught red-handed. I pieced together that she used the other pictures of a girl around my age. I'm assuming the girl was a niece or something. In her mumbling, she said it was later than she realized and he'd be home soon. My mind instantly raced to a friend telling me his uncle caught his wife using pictures of their daughter to lure younger guys over for anonymous sex. I quickly realized the guy in the pictures was her husband and I was in the same situation. I fully respect others' relationships and was instantly ready to go. No longer nervous. I told her I was not going to mess around with a married woman. I told her to no longer contact me and I was leaving. I was pissed. Not only had I been lied to, but I had been cheated on before. I know exactly what that felt like and refused to have part in doing that to another person. As I walked out the door onto the porch, she yelled to wait. I turned around instinctively to see her coming towards me. She grabbed me and started trying to kiss me. I pushed her away and told her to stop. Her face turned into a mask of pure insanity. She rushed towards me once again, trying to kiss me. I tried to hold her back, but in a second she tackled me, knocking me over with her falling on top of me. She kept grabbing at me, grabbing my genitals, kissing me, and crying like a baby. She kept screaming for me to fuck her. I was trying to push her off, but the fall had knocked the wind out of me. Not to mention, like I said, she was huge. I kept wrestling with her, trying my best, and somehow worked my legs in between us. I pushed them as hard as I could, knocking her off me. She stumbled up and fell over on her porch furniture. Adrenaline took over and I ran as fast as I could down the stairs and to my car. As I was sliding into my seat, I saw her picking herself up at the bottom of the stairs. She must have fell down them trying to get me still. I backed down the driveway, and as I looked back before driving away, she was coming down the driveway. Her bathrobe hanging half off her, her naked body exposed and covered with scratches and dirty from her falls. I drove off as fast as my Ford Escort would take me. I don't know how I didn't get in a wreck from constantly looking in the rearview mirror hoping she wasn't following me. I found my way back to the main road and before long realized I had went the wrong way. I pulled into the first gas station intending to turn around. I noticed nobody was following me and the gas station was well lit and had a few cars. I felt safe and parked, trying to get myself together after that insane scuffle. I still can't believe how scared I was. If you would have seen that face and been through that tackle, you'd understand. I collected myself and got out of the car to use the bathroom and make sure I wasn't hurt. The adrenaline was wearing off and random pains started creeping in. It was then that I noticed the gas station was uphill overlooking that trailer park. I could see her standing at the bottom of the driveway. It looked like she was holding her head, crying. First, I felt bad for her. I'm a nice person to a fault. I've often let myself get sucked into bad situations by feeling bad for a person I shouldn't have. I saw this crazy person crying and felt bad. Then I remembered her crazy shit and the pain creeping in, making me wonder if she seriously hurt me. So I used the bathroom and left. As I was getting back in my car, I looked back one more time. I saw a car in the driveway and a man was yelling in the front yard. I guess he got home while I was peeing. I can't imagine what it had to be like coming home to your wife standing naked in the driveway crying. Judging by her mumbling before the insanity, I figured she wasn't a good liar. I got home and the next day told my roommate what happened. I didn't want to at first. I felt ashamed for some reason. though like I said, he was my best friend. He knew when something was wrong, not to mention I was limping around. My entire body was killing me. He figured she was unhappy in her marriage, and maybe her screwing around made her a little crazy. Or maybe she was already crazy and the situation set her off. Maybe on drugs or something. I don't know. I cut off all contact, and it's been almost 20 years since that night. I've never seen or heard from Beth again. I'm 41 and happily married. My best friend is still my best friend, even though he no longer lives in the state. We never really talk about it. Outside of this, I've only talked about it to a therapist I visited during a particularly hard time in my life. My wife doesn't know. I still feel pretty ashamed about it. The therapist told me it was probably from a little PTSD type thing, not to mention guilt from perceived gender roles, maybe. Beth, I don't know if you got help or got worse. I don't care. I hope I never see you again.